Give me another baba. Give me a better baba. Oh, a real baba.
Welcome to Under the Influence. My name is Max, and
Mac, back again.
back at it for the second time. It's episode 2 of Under the Influence. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Dollhouse. You've come back for more Todd Solondz. Presumably, you're here. You're ready to join us. You're continuing our adventure through film with our friend.
That's a good assumption.
Todd Solondz.
A nice assumption.
Or you liked the thumbnail and you clicked on the video.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're not going to be
thumbnail, which is fine. I won't discriminate. But in case you did just click on the thumbnail,
sure,
and you have no idea who these two idiots are talking. The first episode we talked about. The first episode we talked about Todd Solondz short films and his first feature. We're going to talk about his first, his second feature, but his really entrance.
He would like you to think this is his first feature. It's not. Like you just said, we in fact, in our first episode, we talk about, one of our favorite American independent cinema, mavericks, Todd Solondz.
I'll find out in years to come what damage I have wrought.
Who is, really just somebody who we both feel really passionately about, and we both absolutely love his movies. So again, we're back, we're talking about him, and just to let you guys know, if you're new to this video, if this is the first one you're seeing, we're going to go through with directors and try to focus each episode on a film. So like Mac was saying, in our first episode, we talk about Todd Solondz short films and his first movie, Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. But as we just mentioned, he would like you to think that those didn't really exist because he doesn't talk about them at all. So.
Yeah, that's always a shame. That's a shame. But we've talked about that before.
Watch the first video.
All it is, Todd, if you're watching.
He's watching.
I know, exactly.
He's one of those subscribers.
The 6 people.
We don't want to give our numbers away here.
1,600.
Oh wait, I think they're
people.
Visible.
Todd is watching this and he's like, "You motherfuckers! I told you never to mention my films ever again." But Todd,
Anxiety and Depression on VHS forever on purpose, you assholes.
But
yes,
if
your impression was much better than mine.
Nah, Todd, if you're listening, please think again about your shorts and your first film. They're much better than you give yourself.
Shameless plug to the Criterion Collection. Let's see that shit on a single disc.
Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge. Okay, go ahead. You were talking about Solondz getting those first movies out of the way, maybe permanently in his mind. The shorts at NYU and then Fear, Anxiety, and Depression.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. The fact that this isn't just a show about Todd Solondz too. Just
good point.
If there's any confusion,
I didn't finish that.
Yeah, if there's any confusion, this is not a show about Todd Solondz, but this is a show about like the people and the artists who are like fascinate us. And right now we're focused on Toddy Boy himself.
Yes,
and
he's gonna be the first director who we're exploring.
Yeah, and so we did his short films, and we did his first feature film that he pretends does not exist. And so you can see that in the last episode. But basically, this is his first feature. He would like to think this is his first feature film. Yeah, this is it. This is like his intro to the film world.
He was writing Welcome to the Dollhouse while he was working on the movie Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. And he was writing this movie because he was so unhappy with what was going on during the production of Fear.
I was so miserable.
Todd, what happened during the movie? I mean, what was it that got you so upset?
We talked about this. I think we talked about this, right? So we both agree. I love Todd as an actor. I think
sure, he's wonderful.
He's a fantastic.
You can see him in the shorts. You can see him in the first movie, Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. He's the lead.
But we did have like a little contention at some point because I said I think he's a great actor, but we agreed on this, is that in this movie he realizes that his character, that kind of Woody Allen kind of protagonist, it doesn't transfer to this particular story.
I can say that when I did make the film, I was very scared. I was very nervous about me, a guy is in my 30s already, and I'm making a movie about a young girl, a tween, like she's 11 years old or so, and I was worried about how women would respond to the film, because who am I to understand what that experience is about? But I also feel philosophically that's my job as a filmmaker, is to make leaps and to imagine other ways of being.
Like Welcome to the Dollhouse. And so he has to use a 12-year-old girl, a tween girl, as kind of his voice, which then kind of changes the way he can't be so like, it can't be so autobiographical, even if he claims it's not autobiographical, but like.
So yes, everything's autobiographical, although nothing, in fact, actually happened.
But there is that thing of like, he basically stops acting, right? So for everything before this, he was in everything. I mean, he was the lead role in everything.
We talk about this as being kind of like Solondz' big, like, you know, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like his revelation in that
he realizes
he discovers that his voice is maybe best spoken through not like himself, as you said, kind of maybe this like Woody Allen type character, but maybe that voice is best, you know, given to us through a 12-year-old girl, or, you know, a 58-year-old man, or somebody who's, you know, 37 and lives with their parents still. So
somebody who
finds
not
that
a director that they're you know, any audience is assigning like a direct to me,
which is
like, oh, he's the writer director and he's the actor. This is clearly what he's trying to tell me. But, you know, he can't say.
And that's again, you make an interesting point there, and that's something that we should point out, is that someone like Todd Solondz is in a really unique position where he is coming from this point of where he is almost in complete creative control as the writer, director, and actor. That's really difficult when you're so involved to then kind of like, because people might think, oh, you know, well, like most screenplay writers are writing about somebody else or not writing about themselves. It's like, it's such a different story almost when you're the filmmaker kind of involved in it. That is this kind of like beautiful, like, oh my goodness, when you do discover that voice is
Paul Schrader vibe. You're reminding me of a Paul Schrader vibe.
I'm giving you a Paul Schrader vibe.
Yeah, I mean,
I swear to you that I'm.
Well, you're
I'm
talking
not,
about filmmakers
I'm
and
sober
writers.
relatively.
Yeah.
Only class.
So we're talking about Welcome to the
Dollhouse.
we're talking about Welcome to the Dollhouse, and we're talking about like basically he made this as his like redemption. Yes. He made this while he was filming.
He wrote the screenplay for Welcome to the Dollhouse while he was making Fear, Anxiety, and Depression his first film.
And he wanted
to redeem the shitty movie that he thought Fear, Anxiety, and Depression was, which it wasn't. It's awesome. It's a great movie.
Exactly. Yeah. And a couple years later, after the movie premiered, it took a couple years. I don't, know. I assume from his bio on Wikipedia, he was teaching English to the Russian, because again, Happiness came after that, and I assume that was
he had some interesting life experience that would inspire him later. So he's maybe he's maybe teaching English to Russian immigrants, is what you're saying. Well,
he did do that at some point. I just don't know the timeline. He did teach English as a second language. But point being is that like this came out. This changed his entire career. So he went from a guy who dropped out of NYU, who had already made, in our opinion, some pretty damn good, decent shorts.
Absolutely.
And a first feature film by the age of 29 or something. I mean,
super impressive.
Just unbelievable. And he takes 2 years off, then comes back with this.
Yeah, it's the movie premiered at Toronto in '95, and it changed my life. I know people always say you learn from failure, but success I learned a lot more from.
And he just starts to win international awards. And
yeah, well, I mean, so that's a good time maybe then to jump in before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the movie per se, but just a little background.
We should
I was gonna say a little background on the making of the movie. Then you're mentioning that he has the success with after he finishes the movie. But it's really interesting that he had basically almost thrown in the towel, though, after he finished Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. And it really didn't, again, it kind of played in festivals and got, I'm sure, a commendation because it is a really beautifully made movie.
But no one's talking about it.
Yeah, it doesn't really make the waves maybe that he necessarily hoped it would. But as we said, he was disappointed with it while he was making it. So he writes Welcome to the Dollhouse, and nothing necessarily is happening after Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. But as you have told me before, which I always think this fascinating tidbit that you've given me, is like his family friend like offers to produce his next film. Basically, is like, oh, Todd, I really think you're a great filmmaker.
You're a good filmmaker. Yeah,
I like what I see, and like offers to fucking start, like, to give him the impetus to start.
And he already had the script. He already had the script.
He had a good redemption script ready to go, man. So
redemption song.
The redemption song script, baby. You know, Todd's a bass man. So the point being is, like, this is just one of those setups where it's like, fuck, he is ready to come back. He is ready to do something that he thinks is really important. And as we're going in a roundabout way, saying he's found his voice, and it is Dawn Wiener, who is this 12-year-old girl who is in this middle school that is literally, probably in my opinion, the most accurate and honest portrayal of someone in a middle school situation that I've ever seen.
Don't you have any dignity?
Well, you told me
painfully realistic.
You told me what you read, like it's the cruelest depiction.
It's the cruelest film on adolescence.
Yeah, and it's like, it's actually the most realistic film on adolescence.
Absolutely, it's honest. It doesn't pull any punches.
It's honest and it's brutal, but at the same time, it's like, we talk about this also. Young kids should probably watch this. Todd Solondz jokingly, like, there's a great video of him doing a Q&A, but he talks about it. He's like, oh, my kids are in the audience, and like,
while all my other films, I have told them they have to wait till they're 35.
So it kind of lets you know, like, no, young kids should watch this movie despite, like, the horrible things the characters say to each other.
Some horrors happen, certainly, within the course of the exploration of Dawn Wiener's young life in middle school.
Verbally, that's it.
Well, no, I mean, come on, quite a few other horrors happen.
You gotta.
Don't try anything stupid.
Please let me go. First, take a shit.
I think there's kidnapping, threats of, we won't even start to get into it. But
if you were to watch this when you were in 6th grade, I don't know if it would resonate as.
Hey man, I've told
maybe
you
it
before.
would. I don't know.
I've told you before that I caught a little bit of Welcome to the Dollhouse on TV when I was like really young, like probably maybe even younger than middle school or in middle school.
And
I was like, it was a part that happens later in the movie, but it's a part where a child is like in peril and there's just no attention paid to them whatsoever, and it's just like something that I saw that was just, I didn't understand it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And come to find out later that it's Welcome to the Dollhouse, of course, is what I had seen. But let's talk a little bit about the movie. So it's about 12, presumably, we keep saying 12-year-old. I'm not sure. She's a young tween, Dawn Wiener, who is played by Heather Matarazzo. And
amazing.
We could probably spend an entire hour kind of praising her.
I think maybe we should talk about actors now before we go into anything else. Heather, if you're listening to this, if you ever want to do an interview with,
we know she's one of those subscribers.
Yeah, exactly. But seriously, she doesn't. I've looked at a lot of interviews. There's a great interview of her on Letterman when she's 13 years old, right after this movie came out.
How about your family? How about your parents? How do they feel about having an actress?
They think it's great.
Yeah.
They're really excited for me, and my mom's still back in the Sundance. She's like, you won Grand Jury Prize. Mm-hmm. But I think now she's moved up to Siskel and Ebert because they reviewed my film and we were watching it. My mom's like, oh my God, they reviewed your movie! And she was bugging. Uh-huh. Dave, she was bugging.
Mom was bugging. Manny's still out there. Now, when you go to the Sundance thing, that's Robert Redford, Pretty Boy. Robert Redford. And he has this big film festival and all his big Pretty Boy friends get together.
Yeah.
And your film won the big deal prize.
when they told me about it, I was like, okay, I won grand jury.
Yeah, what do you get for that?
Oh my God, I won grand jury prize. Someone had to explain it to me. I'm so spaced
Do you
out.
win anything for that, Heather?
I don't know. I did not get a certificate.
Like coupons to the Red Lobster or anything? Nothing like that?
No, I got it for Sizzler.
Sizzler, the Sizzler. That's no good.
Again, you know,
Probably after like Sundance.
it out.
And stuff.
Yeah.
The movie won the Sundance Grand Jury Prize, which is huge in like 95 or 96.
She's just like her character in the movie, she's ridiculously charming. She's funny. She's authentic. Like, great interview with Letterman. Check it out. I'm sure, you know, we'll link to it or whatever.
That's a hell of a character description for Dawn Wiener. You're giving her some
No.
good.
I'm not talking about Dawn Wiener. I'm talking about Heather Matarazzo, the actress. I'm talking about her as a person. And
well, you're saying like she's like Dawn Wiener.
Yeah.
Like her character.
Yeah. Trapped me.
Hey man.
No, she's nothing like her character. No, I only say that she's like her character in the age sense of like she is literally like a tween.
She's like a somewhat innocent young tweenager, whatever the hell you call these young people.
Exactly. And it's such a great dichotomy, the interview between David Letterman and her, and then just like her performance, like it again, it just shows like, oh, this is a character she's playing. And like some people think like, oh, they must have plucked this young like nerdy girl out of us. It's like, no, it's an actor.
She's an incredible actress.
She's an incredible.
That's something we should talk about real briefly here before we start.
She doesn't get the credit. I mean, she gets the credit, of course, but like, this is by no means some like, oh, we plucked some nerdy kid out of like an elementary school. It's like, no, they found this amazing young actor, like child actress, and she killed the part, just absolutely killed it. And
absolutely.
You kind of wonder, is this a real person? You know, is this a real freak kid out there?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, that's something.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, that's what we're here talking about, man, the movie. But that's one of those things where Solondz seems to have this almost like supernatural ability to work with kids. Like his casting for kids is just like incredible, you know, between Welcome to the Dollhouse, Happiness, you know, Life During Wartime, and Wiener Dog. I mean, these child actors that he has are just fucking incredible. And so you know, if they understand the material that they're talking about, wow, that's incredible. But I assume they don't know what they're talking about.
Must be. Well, he talks about Missy, like in interviews, he talks about helping with the woman.
Sure, she was like Czechoslovakian or Russian or something,
Missy,
and didn't actually speak English.
She didn't speak English, and so he would read the lines, and then she would read the, you know, so
they played like a game where they would like mimic, where he would have her mimic him.
The little sister, my worry with her, for example, she was only 6 months in the country, and I was worried because she had she's from Ukraine, she had an accent. But when I auditioned her, because she had the right look, the right quality, but I was worried about her voice. So what I did was I played a game with her to see if she could mimic me. And that's what she did. She was a beautiful mimic. So the camera's rolling, I'm giving her the line reading, and she mimics it right back. We just cut me out.
Mom, since Don isn't eating hers, can me and Mark split it?
Yeah, and so he strikes me as a guy that,
he knew what to do in every situation.
Actors of like all different ages.
Absolutely. So let's talk. So we mentioned Missy. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the Wiener family. So we're talking about. So we have Dawn, who's the main character. Well, you said let's talk about the cast. So let's mention the people. Point. So Heather Matarazzo is Dawn Wiener, who's the focus of the movie, who's our protagonist in this middle school journey that she goes through, and her life at home and her life at school. And we also then have her little sister Missy, who is
perfect child.
Yes, who is this little, you know, ballerina. who is just the idealistic daughter that the Wieners, Mr. and Mrs. Wiener,
The golden child. Yeah.
the golden child, who they love. And then they have 3 kids. So there's the eldest, which is Mark Wiener.
Do you think about girls?
What, are you kidding? I want to get into a good school.
King of the nerds, dude.
King of the nerds.
Who's your brother?
Mark Wiener.
Him is king of the nerds.
So as one of the older girls informs Dawn pretty point blank later when she asks about Mark's reputation, which is an important theme throughout the movie, in that everyone kind of treats Dawn like she's like a 54-year-old woman, and they just kind of tell her like bluntly what the story is.
We earlier had a great discovery that we realized that we were trying to figure out where the hatred of Dawn, like where does all this pre-hatred comes from, and we realized, she's got the older brother who's king of the nerds.
So yeah, so we're talking a little bit about how.
So she inherited. She's the queen of the nerds.
So with that brief breakdown of the Wiener family, yes, we'll get into a quick summary in that. So Dawn at middle school, right off the bat, is like horrifically bullied and seems to be kind of like the ultimate target.
The teachers hate her.
Everybody kind of just hates her. Everybody, just in their own way, kind of knocks her down, and we see that in the course of one day.
I mean, the kid that's getting bullied doesn't want her help.
Are you all right, Troy?
Leave me alone, wiener dog.
Sure. We have, I think to set us up, we have a beautiful Dawn's locker, which is this beautiful art piece of all of these like hate words spray painted and drawn on her locker, which apparently the school, as you mentioned, doesn't like erase.
Well, the school doesn't erase it.
Leave it
and
there.
The best thing about it is I took a picture of it because I was looking at it, and it's like a million different penmanships. It's a million different marker colors. They
worked really hard on it.
So, it's clearly not one, it's not two, it's not 3 people. It's like the entire fucking school has been writing on this person's locker. And every time they wash it off, like someone else writes on it. So it's like, just fuck it.
Basically like the most like,
and it's all these different people adding on to it too, and it's
basically like the most devastating like locker graffiti scenario that you've ever seen. Short of like, great.
She is at the point too. It's not like one of those things where she looks at it and is like, oh,
she's just used to it. It's just commonplace at this point.
I gotta open my locker.
So that was kind of something that we discovered talking last time. That we were like, oh man. Really so Dawn obviously.
Hold on. Let me preface this.
Sure.
My theory, because this is what you were gonna say.
Okay.
I know what you're going to say to me, but I was going to suggest that
you have the power.
I got the power.
All right, hit me, Professor X. Let's go, baby. What are you going? What am I going to say? What was I going to say?
No, I know what you're going to come back with, but what I'm going to say is that Dawn, and I said this before, it's not that this is her character, but she has the tendencies of a particular person that I like to think of, Malcolm X. Dawn does not turn the other cheek as like an MLK figure. She fights back. She retaliates constantly. And so like, whether it's a spitball, whether it's her little sister pushing her in the pool and her family like laughing at her, she always retaliates and she fights back and is just.
So you're diving deep into the Dawn Wiener psychology at this point. So hold on a second.
Okay.
Because let's give the audience here a quick breakdown then of what's going on with Dawn and her family, and that she's the middle child. So she's like basically entirely forgotten. So like most of the movie is so brutal, as people describe it, or so just like nihilistic or whatever you want to say, because it's so honest. In that, I mean, as a kid I can relate to, and I remember just seeing everyone not giving a flying fuck about really what you are doing or who you are or what's going on in your life. It's that adult world, that elusive world really that escapes kids.
For me it's like the way the way in which it is so realistic and so relevant to like the younger like adolescent period is not that it's like, oh, it's showing that like the parents just don't understand. It's more that like
They don't
no,
care.
well, they don't care. And it's not just the parents, it's the teachers, it's the people you go to school with. Nobody fucking
Sure, they're just fed up with
cares.
life. They've had it. That's
Exactly.
you know,
Everybody is fed up and
follies
had it and
of
done
youth.
with it. Yeah. Well, everybody else also living their own life and their own struggles.
Sure.
And so, like, but at 12 years old, you don't get that. You don't understand.
Sure.
You're sitting there thinking you're going to get rescued by some Prince Charming or something. And the only Prince Charming you have is like someone like Brandon.
Why'd you hurry off like that?
I was in a rush.
Fuck you were.
Really,
Tomorrow, same time, same place. You get raped.
Who's
Sure.
like calling you up and just
Sure. So,
offering
and that's
horrible things, you know. And it's like
Yeah.
that's it. That is the only person that's showing you any attention.
You make an
is
interesting
this, like,
point.
monster.
Well, who might be actually have a heart of gold, monster with a heart of gold potentially. So that's good. We haven't mentioned Brandon yet. So Brendan Sexton plays Brandon McCarthy, who is like the bully at the school. So back into talking a little bit about, and as we go through the story real quick, we're going to try to kind of split it up into the first part of the movie. To us, we kind of like saw it as Dawn being at school. So the first part's kind of school, and then the second part kind of focusing more on her home life with her family and another character who we'll kind of mention a little bit later, which has to do with her, becoming a woman and learning the ways of life, really. So let's talk a little bit more about, that first portion at school. So Brandon.
I'm sorry to interject. Because I really do like. I really like the way in which we've divided the way. Again, it's like Act 1 is the life of Dawn at school, because I think this kind of cuts into our summary too. Like, just to quickly summarize the plot, just so we're not going back and forth of like what happened in the movie of like. So basically, we've separated it into like Act 1 is school, Act 2 is like home life, and really that's kind of the plot of the movie as well. Like, we kind of see her in school and those things, and then it kind of pretty much just focuses on her life at home. So that's kind of why we picked the. I don't mean to interject and derail or anything, but.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's what I was saying. I mean, that's why we split it up. No, it's okay, man. You were just justifying what I was saying. So we split it up into the two parts.
Out loud, yeah.
And we basically just kind of want to, go at it that way to make it a little easier to kind of go at. But so the thing is we see Brandon at first in school kind of like bullying this other kid. So we see Dawn kind of go to this kid's rescue. I believe Troy is his name.
Troy.
And what happens?
No, it's the classic. It's the classic, like, well, excuse me. It's not the classic. It's the thing you think it's going to be. It's this person who's the underdog is standing up for the person who's even lower than she is. And she's like, why don't you leave him alone? And she clears the bullies away. And she gets the kid up and is like, are you all right, Troy? And he looks at her and is like, leave me alone, wiener dog. So even the fucking kid who's getting bullied is like, please, if anyone's going to save me, don't let it be this fucking loser. Like,
so basically Dawn is kind of.
I'd rather get bullied than get
saved by the wiener dog.
By wiener dog.
The whole summer, they're going to be calling me wiener dog and dog face, because that's what I get called in the film, and they're going to be calling me that.
Yeah.
So basically we're illustrated to the point that like even the kid who's getting like basically almost shoved into a locker doesn't want anything to do with Dawn. So Dawn is very much alone in this world and has not
at the bottom of the barrel.
She hasn't found acceptance. But we also mentioned, which we haven't kind of touched on yet, is an important point, is that when this movie starts, and we did talk about how Mark is the king of the nerds, and we assume Dawn has just inherited this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But that we don't know if like when the movie starts, like is Dawn like. Is this her breaking point? Like,
okay.
Is she at the end of her rope?
That was the kind of point I was talking about. That was the point I was talking about. And there was the larger point that I was trying to say. That's again, bong hit theory, but it's like, oh, Dawn is like this Malcolm X character where she doesn't give a fuck. She retaliates, and you actually push back and you were like, well, this is. Again, we're looking at a snapshot in her life. This is like a 2-week, possibly like a 2-3 week snapshot into her life. So while I look at this and I go, oh, she doesn't give a shit, she's always fighting back, you're like, no, this could be her fucking, this is probably her breaking point. Like, we don't know. Like, that's what's so interesting is the plot is so confined. It's so contained. So for
that
me,
is an interesting aspect.
I look at it and I'm like, oh, she doesn't ever take no shit from anybody. And it's like, this is 2 or 3 weeks. This could be the worst 3 weeks of her fucking life.
Yeah,
so
that's an interesting.
Like, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm going full. I mean, what?
Yeah,
that's it.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, she's a real Henry Crinkle. Yeah, you know, that's one of those things where it's like, you have like no clue, you know, where these characters have been, which is just fascinating. And I'm even thinking about, I don't mean to get ahead of us. I'm thinking about Happiness too, where you're coming from all these people and you're like, what the fuck were these people doing before the events of this film?
Yeah, what?
Like, what? Like, I want a novel. I want like 5 fucking novels of Todd Solondz writing these characters. Like, that's how interesting all these characters are. But I don't, not to get ahead of us in that respect.
No, absolutely.
But so we're talking about basically like Brandon kind of like bullying this kid, Dawn saving this kid, which then leads to kind of more interaction. So some more interactions happen where Brandon and his friends are shooting a spitball at Dawn. You mentioned this, and like Dawn then like shoots a spitball back, and of course it like doesn't hit Brandon. It murders some like poor teacher.
So students, I'm telling you this story.
But that brings your parents into the school, and so Dawn is also just like causing problems for everyone at this point.
Yes, Dawn. We've figured out is that Dawn is like, she is a victim by any means, but because she chooses to retaliate, she doesn't just take it and they're like, oh, you need to stop picking on this girl. It's like, no, like she puts herself in these positions where
she's not going to take any shit. She's just like,
I mean, and in the court,
she's like the Brian De Palma of like 12-year-old girls. She's like, I'm no bullshit. I'm done. You know.
Yes, exactly. She is like the Brian De Palma. Exactly.
You know, gotta squeeze Brian in there.
You know, like all kids. No.
All kids love Brian De Palma. Are you kidding me? I have a fucking Brian De Palma action figure.
Yeah. Classic. It's a classic reference among the kids.
Hey, he's looking young. He's hip.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, before we get too far into the school and Brandon, we touched a little bit about Mark, who's the king of the nerds and is kind of like very, very important. And I don't want to get too carried away here, because we're kind of starting to move nicely through the school portion here. But I think it's really important to mention that this was something that I felt really strongly about, which was that Dawn, in a sense, and then Mark too, who ends up becoming really important, is the genesis of this larger Todd Solondz universe. And I don't want to get off on that, because I know we could talk about that for a very long time. But I think it's worth mentioning that these characters, like Solondz, writes
is the start of
absolutely.
I sometimes bring back characters from movies that I've made. And it's not a calculated thing. It's just a kind of, it's handy. I like to play. Not everyone wants to play with me.
So Solondz feels so strongly about these characters that he essentially, like, every film after this, in some respect, is like either a sequel in, you know, this context that the same characters are featured throughout these movies after Welcome to the Dollhouse. And it's really just, I love it. I mean, it's fascinating. And like Mark Wiener is somebody who persists.
And it's funny because we compared it like earlier, like I was like, oh, it's so different from like a Stephen King, who's like doing like as much as he can to be like, I've got an extended universe where where
you'd never hear Todd Solondz even like speak of it.
He doesn't talk. It's just like it's an afterthought, and he's like, well, I mean, it's the same character, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even necessarily think it's
an
afterthought.
I think
he's coy when he says that.
I like this character. I think it's fun. I think I want to put them in a different scenario.
It's a very novelistic approach to
exactly
screenwriting. But sorry, so not to get too into that, but like these characters, and like Mark, for instance, are these characters who are carried out throughout Solondz films. So it's really interesting to see the genesis of these characters happening. Don't know why
actors. Well, you get different actors for 99% of them, but yeah.
Not necessarily, though.
Well,
some of them, sure. But so we have Brandon then having these interactions with Dawn causing trouble, and then the real kind of genesis for the kind of the most important event in the film, or one of the most important events in the film, which is Brandon encounters Dawn and her little pal Ralphie, who are, as we should have probably mentioned before, the Special People's Club. And the Special People's Club is very important.
Yeah.
Yes, the Special People's Club is important because they also have a clubhouse, which happens to be right on the Wiener's lawn, and it's an unsightly little place. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Retard.
But so Brandon runs into them as they're hanging out at the local, gas station or whatever, Quickie Mart or whatever the hell it is, playing video games. I'll let you take it from there, baby.
Well, no, I mean, it is. It's
a pivotal scene.
It is. It really is a big scene. So it's the classic, like, Brandon sees, because it's like Dawn and Ralphie, so it's two classics. He starts bullying Ralphie, and Ralphie does have the great line. I'm gonna fucking butcher it, but it's like, you think you're hot shit, but you're just cold diarrhea.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that's it. That is a good line.
You think you're hot shit, but you're just cold diarrhea.
That's beautiful.
Like,
yes.
Got
yes.
him.
Solondz talks about capturing the vernacular of the young adults and learning that, like, we'll show you the original title of the film, but
Todd,
we learned that
so that's a whole other different conversation. It's like the vernacular that the kids use, and we're not going to sit there and quote them line for line for line, because one, I'm not trying to have those sound bites. I mean, I don't care, but at the same time,
you don't have to explain yourself.
I don't need to.
We don't need to say.
I don't need to apologize to my 6 followers.
There you go.
Why I said. But
one of the titles that I had thought of using for the film was Faggots and Retards, and I knew I couldn't use that since it wouldn't be printed, in a newspaper. But the idea being that this is the currency that these kids use, and they have an understanding of what all these words mean, but certainly not the way in which adults understand them, the resonance, the ramifications, and so forth. So I always tried to be true to who they were, even as I might disapprove, let's say, of their behavior and so forth. For me, the rule was just that it had to be true to the integrity of these characters.
But he
will tell you
about,
what his original title for the film is, but also just the crude language that the kids use. It's like, it's their currency. It's what they know. It's how they speak. It's the same thing.
And
like,
we remember.
Yeah, we all do the same thing.
Bullshit.
I mean, yeah, you don't
understand what you say.
When you start to learn how to swear or say anything that are like words that you shouldn't be saying, they carry more weight than you actually know, but you're learning.
This is when we get real moral and tell you that
exactly.
You should follow the teachings of Padre Escobar. He's a good guy.
I'm personally a Scientologist.
Hey, don't tell them that. They don't need to know our secrets. Not yet. We know when to strike. So that's important. That's super important, though, man. That's a really good point. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know. We could talk.
What point?
Just saying generally that, like, Solondz is really keyed into all that shit, and I think he's thinking about it. So,
keyed into what?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Cut?
No cuts, baby.
No cuts.
No cuts. This is the real deal. So we essentially were talking about how Brandon is bullying Ralphie, and you were kind of describing the scene for us there. So.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No. I'm sorry.
There.
You're right. It is pivotal because basically it's like this transference. So it's he sees Dawn and Ralphie. He starts to fuck with Ralphie. It's funny actually, because I should preface, before they even come up, Dawn is giving shit to Ralphie because he's like, do you think I'll get in the hummingbirds? And she's like, boys always get in. And it's like, fuck off, Alfie.
Sure. So that's
And
kind
then,
of another
yeah,
key
well, it's
plot
again, it's
point
this whole
is that
it's this transference of like, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off. Like,
I was gonna say just that's even just to the summary of the story, that Dawn is in this singing group, the Hummingbirds, where they're gonna be going on this trip to Disney, and that's kind of this like
bookends.
This sure, it's this kind of like continuous thread through the story that she's like gonna be going on this trip. But so yeah, so
Disney World trip.
she's harassing Ralphie about being in the Hummingbirds potentially, and then the altercation with Brandon happens, and you're talking about how it begins.
Well, Brandon comes up, he fucks with them.
Yes,
Ralphie tries to say some stupid shit, which is
the beautiful diarrhea line.
Great, yeah, great line. And Dawn ends up referring to she calls Brandon a retard, and it clearly triggers him, and it clearly like sets something off, and he goes away. And then the most pivotal scene is that in the movie is that in our opinion,
sure,
really
we find out later, and I mean, spoiler alert, that Brandon has like a handicapped brother, so he's in fact very sensitive to a comment.
Exactly. There wasn't just this random
Sure, and of course we do find out that of course his home situation, he has a shitty dad who's made him a fucking horrible bully, and his brother is makes it harder for everybody, et cetera, taking care of his brother.
Of course.
So. But as you mentioned, yes. So it begins this beautiful. Solondz demonstrates this beautiful cyclical nature of bullying and eventually love, but first of kind of like hate, and first of kind of like these hateful things being said that these kids don't even necessarily understand. So you were talking about the pivotal. Yes. You were talking about the pivotal moment in which Brandon retaliates from Dawn's comment, hateful.
Yeah. He gets fucked up after she refers to him as a retard. He gets completely triggered because of his brother, and then it's very funny at first. Dare I say funny?
Well, that is the Solondz way. You don't know if you should laugh or cry.
Don't cancel me. But it's pretty funny because, again, Dawn's parents, they're not bad guys, but they're kind of heels.
We have a lot of characters in Welcome to the Dollhouse and in Solondz movies in general who are kind of like in a moral, like, let's say, gray area. Maybe would be the best way. Some of them are. Some of them are shitty, horrible people. I'm thinking particularly of this character right here. But again, some of them are these kind of beautiful, confused, people who are learning about themselves, like Dawn, and like Brandon, who you mentioned as the prince. As the Prince Charming of the film, and as somebody who at first is this like bully, this fucking hateful person saying all these hate words to people and threatening them and stuff, and he's the Prince Charming of this story because he just wants to love someone. He wants to love. So. I'm getting ahead of myself, though.
You are, yeah. But basically, the pivotal scene, in which for me, I think changed this from, we talked about this as like a really relevant film for like not only just like film people, but also like kid. I mean, again, if I watched this as I was like 15 years old or like 13 even, like it would be pretty hard to watch at some parts, but it wouldn't be like, oh, this is scary. This doesn't relate to it's like, no, this is completely the way in which kids talk to each other.
You could watch it as a young teenager, and you could understand everything that's going on.
You're stupid. You're stupid if you think that little kids don't talk to each other.
We were saying this is like the R-rated Judy Blume. Like this is the easy way to kind of like, hey kids, you know what? This is what life is like. Oh wait, it's actually fucking hideous sometimes.
Exactly. So basically, after that scene in which I guess Dawn triggers Brandon to a point where it's like, okay, something fucked him up. I think, again, probably the most pivotal scene in the movie where, again, it kind of has this change of it. Well, it's still the same film, but it just I guess Todd Solondz just kind of shows like his fucking cojones and is like, listen, I got,
absolutely.
This isn't just going to be some like, oh, isn't life hard as a 12-year-old? It's like, no, it's going to be like really, it's going to be complex and difficult and hard to understand maybe. And
hey, Wiener.
What do you want?
You better get ready, because at 3 o'clock today, I'm gonna rape you.
But I think what's interesting about that is, again, we can sit there.
Is not only are the things coming out of these kids' mouths fucking incredibly
Horrific,
volatile, and Solondz is definitely pushing some boundaries, certainly by having these kids talk about this shit. But it's so effective. It's so fucking incredibly realistic, man. And you can tell by the intonations what, you know.
You can't sit there as an adult and say, oh, children don't talk like this. It's like, no, they absolutely do. Like, in fact, I remember in high school when everyone, every other word out of their mouth was fuck, because it was like, oh, I get to say this now. It's like,
watching a lot of Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, there's,
you know, The Departed was popular.
Exactly. All the people we went to school with were actually just big Mark Wahlberg fans.
Hey, you know, Mark's gotta, you know, stomp a few kids.
It's that realization of like, oh, the consequences of saying bad words is like not really there, so I can continue to like just be, you know, crude. And
absolutely, it's key. It's a huge part of the movie.
You don't know the weight the words carry. So
essentially, the big point that happens after, kind of like, you know, they do encounter one another at school, Dawn and Brandon, and their meeting is interrupted by, I believe, like a janitor kind of like pops out, and Dawn escapes.
Right.
Nice try, bitch.
No, I was trying to meet you.
Don't bullshit me, you piece of ugly fuck.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for shit.
Like, instead of a dark corridor, because Todd Solondz couldn't find that, she thinks she's home free, and she bursts through the open doors, and then it's like, and she gets jerked to her side, and she's literally a knife to her throat or whatever, with a soccer game in the background, where this, you know, bully is just telling her like what's going to happen.
When we were location scouting, there was a scene in the script where Brandon corners Dawn in what was described as a shadowy stairwell. And when we went location scouting, we were lucky. We found this particular public school that would be available to us. The first thing I had to figure out was, how do I solve the problem? Because there is no shadowy stairwell. It was really brilliantly designed. The architect understood that it would be impossible for a bully to corner anyone in this school, because they were all just open hallways. There were no corners to go in and get away with this kind of behavior. So it was kind of bully-proofed. And I was kind of in awe of that sense of design that the architect had. So what I did was I moved it outside, and he threatens her there against the wall of the school. And the reason I moved it outside, because I was thinking, I know this is oblique, but I was thinking about North by Northwest and the cornfield scene where Cary Grant is running away from the plane and all. And because that is all about, that was his, in fact, statement about how to create suspense, instead of the, let's say, the cliche of the shadow, play of shadow and corners, here is light and space, okay? So I brought it outside on a beautiful day, and while he's there threatening her, I had put a soccer match going on in the background at the same time, so that it could communicate in some sense, let's say, the obliviousness of the world and sort of the happy world that's going on, while this intense kind of threat is taking place. And so that came out of, I immediately thought of Hitchcock at that moment, okay?
Basically kind of just him hammering home that overarching theme of that nobody gives a fuck what children are doing, or really pays attention, and they're so caught up in their own business.
Safe. You're not safe at all.
I can definitely relate to that. I can definitely say that is an accurate portrayal of childhood for some people, unfortunately. You know, I was from, you know, a rough area, certainly. Tough upbringing. But yeah, that's definitely one of the most pivotal things that happens is, you know, this interaction between Dawn and Brandon, and it becomes clear that after this first interaction when Brandon lets her know that it's still going to be happening.
Right. Well, it's very
And-
romantic. Their first
Sure.
interaction is
Yeah, so we failed to mention that they do in fact kiss.
Yeah.
There's a brief.
It's like a first kiss.
Yes, it's very romantic in a middle school sense. In
I
a
mean,
forced,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
was just gonna say,
horrific.
the whole. I would say the whole scenario is really gross at first, but then it really mutates into this kind of strangely, like, kind of innocent and adolescent romantic scene.
This kiss that happens, I mean, in fact, it's not only the character's first kiss, it's the girl, the actress's first kiss. And it's the possibility of these connections, of this tenderness, is what that ultimately is what moves us. So it's you know, whether the ugly, the beautiful, the sacred, the profane. There's always a kind of friction, let's say, between, you know, that I have something from a Grieg operatic kind of work going against what is going to be an ostensible rape, you know. But rape, it's not even entirely clear that even the characters understand what that word even really means.
Well, and we discussed this before, but we don't want to stress it. But certainly we come to the conclusion that Brandon says many hateful and extreme things, but might not entirely understand the implication of all the words that he's saying. So,
like a lot of children, when they say these things, they don't understand, like, the context and the weight in which these words carry,
and which you demonstrated before, that Solondz, you know, shows us beautifully by how Dawn says something to Brandon that upsets him, and then she says something to him that is interpreted in a totally different way.
Okay, so let's be blunt. The same person who threatens this 12-year-old girl with "I'm going to rape you" gets triggered at the fact that this 12-year-old girl calls him a retard. It's a total stupid. It's a conundrum. It's a total stupid conundrum because it shows the power of these words. Don't mean anything. It's just these little trigger words that they give an underlying meaning to. It's like an underlying, like,
sure, it's just a child's perspective of
exactly, because again, it's not this full understanding of the weight that these words carry, and so they just know that they're hurtful, but they don't really know in what way, like,
they don't know the repercussions of what they're saying necessarily.
Exactly.
So we have this interaction, and clearly there's, in fact, you know, some kind of spark between the two of them. And it's like, it's interesting because this is a huge point for Dawn, because she's going through her life where basically, as we've mentioned many times at this point in time, nobody's really paying attention to her. Nobody really seems to give a damn about her. She's just kind of looking for somewhere to belong, you know? And it's go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we haven't talked about, I guess we're still focused on Act 1 of School, right?
Sure.
And part of it, even though he's part of home, but he's also part of school, is Steve Rogers. We call him Steve Rogers.
Let's get a little wild. Let's get a little crazy.
But because certainly that's a big part. We're talking about her relationship with
Brandon.
Brandon.
Well, I was kind of trying to tie up the end of the school portion with Brandon.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to let you have it. But what he's saying is that, like, he thinks that he wants to, quote unquote, rape Dawn, but in fact, maybe he just wants to be her boyfriend.
Yeah.
He just wants to spend some time with her. So when he has her come to meet him the second time, she kind of comes willingly. She comes to his spot.
Down.
She lays down with him, and he offers her a
weirdly
marijuana cigarette.
Yeah,
you know,
it's very strange.
And it's interesting because we see Dawn kind of just finally being accepted by somebody, you know, and she's happy to she's happy to be chosen.
Yeah,
you know? She's happy to have somebody pay attention to her and want to be with her. So she accepts. So she kind of willingly accepts Brandon, and we see this really soft kind of side of Brandon, and we kind of maybe learn a little bit more about his troubled home life and where he's coming from, and and we see kind of the innocence of these kids, and like despite all this horrible shit that they've said, that really it's kind of like it's this beautiful thing that these kids are just kind of like they just want to be belong. They just want to feel loved. They just want to.
Well,
be,
they just
wanna belong.
exactly. They need to be
Like so
accepted.
many
They need
kids,
to be
you know?
loved. Yeah, exactly.
But that brings us to then the very important point you were about to mention, which is this has completely opened up Dawn's eyes as far as relationships go. Because she maybe feels that she doesn't really like Brandon that much.
Because concurrently, exactly, while she's being awakened by Brandon,
yes, the king of the nerds has started a band.
Yeah, the king of
to get ahead.
The quadratics, dude.
The quadratics.
How dare you?
Hey, that didn't sound too much like Satisfaction.
Yeah, what's the matter, do you think?
The King of the Nerds has started a band. They've recruited Steve Rogers. Mark is just doing this for his college transcript. They've got Steve Rogers, Captain America himself.
Yes, we have Steve Rogers, who is the classic bad boy lead singer, rhythm guitar songwriter for the coolest high school around, And it's like he comes into to the movie as the lead singer songwriter in Mark's band, the Quadratics, as you mentioned, to attempt to, because they start out as a three-piece, three young gentlemen,
Classic band, the bands, the drummer, keyboards, and clarinet. My favorite bands.
Beautiful trio, Kingston Trio, classic. But it's like not working out. So they decide, Mark being a smart gentleman, decides that he's going to get the coolest guy in school to get in this band. And hey, man, he needs help passing his computer science class.
Yeah.
We're talking about Steve Rogers.
It's a trade.
Because he's a moron. So
barter. It's a straight barter.
So Steve Rogers agrees to be in Mark's band, and by darn it, they're gonna be fantastic. And young Dawn Wiener cannot help but fall under the magnetic love beam of
Well, the two of us have made a special world, little girl.
The glorious Steve Rogers.
Sweet mystery of life.
Yes, take it away there. Sorry,
now
we're there. Now we're there, baby. So we are in part
obsessed.
So despite a few horrific other bullying situations.
Yeah. I mean, school life sucks for Dawn. There's no doubt about it. They're eating slop. Every scene you see. They're eating slop. You have a bully like Lolita.
Yeah. We have Brandon's potential love interest and rival to Dawn, Lolita.
Right. We couldn't figure that out. I personally think she may have dated him.
Oh, don't you get no. Don't you get into this. No, we're not fanficking this shit. Okay. So
So anyways, Lolita Lolita is another other, right? So she's like maybe not goth.
She's another loner in the school.
Another loner.
But you know what? She's not going to take any shit from Dawn.
Exactly. She's on a higher totem pole than Dawn, at least her.
So we have
she can bully her, and in fact, she probably bullies her more to kind of raise herself.
She's maybe the true bully of the film there.
Oh, absolutely.
As we have the horrifying and unforgivable
because
scene
at
where
least
she forces her to watch her take a shit.
I want to see it with my own eyes. Why do you hate me? Because you're ugly.
I would say Brandon is redeemable. Lolita, there's never a moment where she's redeemable at all.
But so there's some other horrors in Dawn's life, and you mentioned her teacher calls her a fucking tattletale and
she asks her, "Don't you have any dignity?"
Grade grubber. So she gets
calls her a grade grubber.
But there are other horrors that occur in the school portion, but there are many horrors still that await in the home portion of the
film. And I think Steve Rogers is the perfect catalyst because he kind of comes from the school. It's like, he's from the high school.
She's learned a little bit about love.
Well, and he's also been to the same middle school that she went to because he's like, "Where do you go?"
He's got a rep.
And she mentions, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I went there. That shit was horrible." And she's like, "Oh, you went to the same,
So Dawn is kind of like immediately, smitten with Steve, and kind of seems to become,
Can we just
her life becomes Steve.
Not my favorite scene, but one of the most perfect depiction of smitten in general, is when Dawn is fixing him food.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say when she's
No, well, that is
dancing on
that. She's just totally like, oh my
dancing
god, this
during
guy
the
is
band
hot.
practice.
Yeah,
She's feeling
I'm
it.
talking about when he comes over and she's like practicing piano. Man, to me, that was the best scene of the whole movie. To me, honestly.
Oh yes, absolutely.
She's
I love the
practicing
scene.
piano, and she's like, and then Steve comes over.
Steve
and
comes over for a little
just-
help on his computer science, but Mark isn't home. Dawn is home
She has like a
alone.
wash over her face, and she's like, "Please come on in," you know. Helps him in, and then gets him food, gets him a Hawaiian punch, and the humming. It's like this again. Heather Matarazzo. Did Todd Solondz tell her like, "Hey,
Wonderful.
hum with happiness"? You know what I mean? Because she literally is bringing him fish sticks, Hawaiian punch, and it's
She
like
immediately busts into the domestic like
here I come
situation, bringing him food and
she
stuff.
She turns into his wife.
Right. She's kind of demonstrating
And
what
she's
she thinks
12
is-
years old,
yeah.
and she just knows how to go into this role. It's weird. It's brilliant. It's creepy. I mean, it's hilarious.
I love that scene because like we have our
Sad.
little comedian Todd Solondz naming the character Steve Rogers, who we think of as being this noble Captain America, and then he immediately proceeds to come into the Wiener house and go into their mail and proceed to steal cash money out off of their table, which is like the most horrific. The most just like petty, just awful thing you could do to some people
like
you don't really even know.
Yeah, that's like the first defining shot. It's like
so
like
you get this wonderful shot of Dawn, and again, not to kind of skip over some of the wonderful cinematography. There's a beautiful shot that we talked about where at the beginning of the movie when Dawn first goes in the cafeteria, where it like just pushes in on her and she's kind of just standing there, and it's just fucking brutal. You know, that just sense of loneliness, but. This is another great shot in this scene that we're talking about where she's just kind of like, like dreamily, like lulling at him, and he's like stealing the money off of the table, just like pounding fish sticks,
yeah, slow motion. In slow motion, yeah, he doesn't steal money, but it's slow motion when she looks at him lovingly. He's like,
"Hey, baby, there's no slow motion. You're making this shit up."
No, I think there is. I think there's a slow motion.
There's a slow motion on this, but I contest your slow motion. But it's a fucking hilarious scene. He goes through the fucking kitchen table and through the mail. He steals the money, and there's like love music playing, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
and then by the end, by the end, she's practicing for him, right?
Sure. She plays.
So he's like, and she's like,
he doesn't give a damn.
Like,
so
Dawn
Wiener has fallen madly in love with the fantastic. We won't talk about the role of the Crow, but we'll just say Steve Rogers, Eric, your performance is wonderful. You're fucking hilarious. So even Mark's band, they're performing these original songs, which are not written by the great singer-songwriter Todd Solondz himself, but there are a few songs that are played like Welcome to the Dollhouse that the band plays, which are hilarious. I'm not sure who we can credit for those, but the band is playing and singing them, and they are pretty they're pretty fucking funny. So we'd love to know where those songs came from, because we don't know. Maybe they were just written for the movie, maybe not. Maybe they pre-existed. Who knows? Good questions, but point being, Dawn is in love with Steve, and you know what? The Wieners want to have an anniversary party, and Dawn's fucking special people's club hut that she has with Ralphie is on that yard, and that thing has to go. So Dawn's causing all these problems. She's fucking everything up for the Wieners.
Dawn is fucking with teachers. She's fucking with students. She's getting detention.
She's hanging out smoking weed with Brandon.
Yeah, her mom is like, "Can you just tear down your stupid fucking clubhouse?" And she's like, "No! Fuck no!"
She stands up, man. She's the Travis Bickle. She's holding her hand over the fire burner. You know, every night she's getting a little stronger.
What is it, Travis Bickle or the Malcolm X?
No. See, this is disclaimer. I have no fucking clue what he's talking about with Malcolm X, man. I don't condone a Malcolm X comparison to this film. I think somebody's just watched Malcolm X recently and is pulling hard, but man, I don't know. But yeah, so she's not having it. She is gonna sit at the goddamn dinner table until Kingdom Come, because she is not gonna take down the Special People's Club. And you know what? Her mom decides, and sadly, her dad just kind of sits silently in the corner through most of the movie.
I think personally, her dad and her have this kind of like deep. Just looking at it from a writer's perspective, I think that her and her dad are clearly like kindred spirits.
Have it your way.
Dawn, be smart. Make things easy on yourself.
No.
Absolutely.
Like her dad.
There's an unspoken kind of
a
connection.
beaten down guy who's
the Mrs. Wiener does most of the talking in the
her dad
in the family.
Yeah, her dad's
pretty beaten down. Exactly.
And looks at Dawn with this kind of like unrelenting, like, please, just
kind of like
go with the flow, or if you're gonna dissent, do it. Like, do it with your full fucking like, just don't. Like when she doesn't eat the chocolate cake, he's like, "Come on, like do it."
So Dawn doesn't comply, and her mom decides to go ahead and serve up the piece of chocolate cake that Dawn was going to have for dessert, and
then
give it to Mark and
Missy. No. See, this is the problem: is you give Missy a pass. They were going. This is why you don't think Missy is.
Hey! We have a brief amount of time here, sir. We can't indulge into these fanfic arguments about character traits that don't actually exist.
But okay, fine.
So we have basically Mrs. Wiener being like, "Hey, you know what, Dawn? Fuck you. You're not getting any cake. Yes. And guess what? Mark and Missy, can you help me take down Dawn's Special People's Club? Can you help me tear that down tomorrow?"
Yeah.
So Dawn is fucking done. And you know what? Missy, who is, as we mentioned, the golden child and seems to be getting every fucking thing that she wants, she's pretty fucking done with that too. So that leads us to the Wieners
party.
Whatever it is. It's a fucking anniversary party, reunion, whatever the fuck it is. It's an anniversary party celebrating Mark and Missy. So Mark's band, after Steve Rogers, by the way, has completely fucked off at this point and quit the band because he was criticized once.
After
he said,
he comes back though and does the party.
You're getting ahead of yourself, partner. This is a preface to the anniversary scene. So I said, by this point in time, Steve Rogers has quit the band.
Barry, why don't you play an A for Steve? You got that, Steve?
Fuck this shit.
So he was criticized for being off key once and then threw down his shit and left, as one does, of course, in a band when you're the lead singer.
That's a normal reaction. I don't blame him at all. I would have done the same thing.
So we have then the Wiener family offering him hundreds of dollars to come and sing and play with Mark's band again. So the money lures Steve back, which gives Dawn another chance to see her love here. And at this point in the movie too, Brandon's kind of like left the picture almost.
Dawn was honest with him.
Dawn was honest with him. It wasn't going to work out.
Which is crazy. I mean, again,
she comes to this journey.
I mean,
she becomes
full.
In this brief snapshot,
she's 12 years old.
Sure. But in this brief snapshot that you mentioned, we see this growth of her character, and it's so natural.
It's
though.
Immense.
It's not forced.
It's immense. Yeah.
Solondz doesn't shove it down your throat and make it
No. But I mean, by the end, not even by the end. I mean, by 3/4 of the way in, the person who rightfully so. I don't want to see Dawn end up with Brandon. You know what I mean? Like that's the idea. It's like, oh yeah, he's like a piece of shit, but he's got love in his heart. It's like, yeah, but he's still a fucking bully. Like he's still a piece of shit.
He turns out like a good-looking Mother Kieran Culkin fucker later. So no worries about that. But just hanging out at the.
But you know what I'm saying is that she.
Well, Solondz also is never gonna. Solondz isn't ever gonna try to defy expectations, let's say, but he's certainly gonna lead you on a pathway that you're probably not gonna expect, which is always beautiful about he's unexpected certainly. But it never feels gimmicky, her journey never feels like it's something that's so beautiful. So we're at the anniversary party, and Dawn is she is still fucking reeling from the fact that the Special People's Club was torn down, and she was grounded, I believe, in some respect.
She's grounded.
She's hiding.
She's she's hiding in a room in like the coolest outfit ever.
Yes.
And then she's waiting.
Shout out to Melissa Toth for her wonderful costume designs.
You remember her name? Thank you.
Dawn's, yes, absolutely. Dawn's costumes, and just we talk a little bit about, and Solondz mentions how many of the families in New Jersey, their houses didn't necessarily reflect the modern day times, and they would be like very much stuck in the 70s still. And Dawn has all these wonderful kind of like 70s, looks like she like handpicked Salvation Army 70s.
I'm not a big costume designer person. I'm really bad about, looking at like basically beyond the cinematographer.
I'm like, man, that John Cassavetes polo shirt in this movie is
I'm bad about looking even beyond the cinematographer. I'm really bad about looking at like who did what on a film, and this go around made me really appreciate costume designers and looking at who did what, because Melissa Toth, this was her first like feature film. She went on to do fucking what is it? What's a Michel Gondry? Eternal Sunshine.
I was gonna say
Eternal
Sunshine. Title cards as you
exactly.
as you stand.
Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind, and then also just recently did the costumes for Fosse Verdon, which was like an obsession of mine.
So basically just like meant just to give an example, Melissa Toth is a small taste of all these wonderful people that Solondz has worked with. Like for Fear, Anxiety, and Depression, his DP that he had went on to work with Tim Burton to be Burton's like regular DP when Tim Burton was still
when
he was still an exciting filmmaker.
The DOP of Fear, Anxiety, and Depression is the same DOP of Batman Returns.
So basically, long story short, Solondz knew how to pick them. So
they also work together too. It was talented people they come together.
Collaboration, man. So Dawn comes out in her beautiful outfit, as we've mentioned. And again, many beautiful things happen in this scene here, but mainly we have the second major relationship that Dawn goes through in this short period of time here come to a head, for lack of a better word. And
with Steve, you mean?
With Steve, yes, the hard hitting. So Solondz shows us the beauty of love and kindness that we can discover with people, and then he hits us right in the beanbag,
Special people equals retarded. Your club is for retards.
With the devastating.
Don't you know what special? Don't you know what Special People's Club is?
Oh yes, exactly.
I love
about that. That's an amazing.
I love the girl behind him too that has no lines, just like.
So Dawn sees, and you pointed this out to me last time, that Dawn, in fact, kind of sees Missy, who's already this kind of object of a little bit of some pent up feelings. She sees Steve like holding her up in the air, like tossing her in the air, and just like showing this affection to her, and that just fucking sets her off, probably.
Well, again, we talked about this, is that like Dawn is the middle child, right? So she's gone through like being the young, cute little girl, and then she's gone through the thing of being replaced by like, oh, there's a newborn baby, it's a new girl.
She's more talented than Dawn is too. Yeah.
Well, and maybe I was overanalyzing and being too like, I was thinking about like my screenwriting class or whatever, but like the characters' names: Mark, Dawn, Missy. So it's like Mark and Missy, Mark and Missy, Mark and Missy, Mark and Missy, and Dawn. And
she wasn't meant to be. The D insinuates that she was dumped.
Yeah, there's just so many different subtle little things of where it's like, oh, like you're not supposed to be here.
There's some congruency issues potentially. Well, of course, she's certainly treated as such. She's totally cast aside, and it really just gets into that psychology of I'm not only forgotten, but then when I do feel like I've found something that I want or something that's important to me, I'm completely rejected. When I do finally get to that point where I know what I want.
I hear that, man.
That was just this devastating like silence. I'm like, oof. Yeah, but it's all in this scene where she goes to find Steve after they've performed this beautiful ode to the Wiener family, a couple $100, song.
$200.
$200, and they happen to have wandered off into the garage, and Dawn sees Steve and knocks on the door. And,
well, yeah, I mean, she needs to get the confirmation, and quickly he's with a girl, and he just confirms, like,
and this is only after very few interactions with them. Really, Dawn kind of hangs out on Steve's bed at one point, or
what's so interesting is that, like, Dawn doesn't suspect this, whereas, like, a lot of, again, mature people, or just in general, like, who've dealt with men and women, are like, oh, this is what he's doing right now, like.
Well, yeah, we've also been notified that Steve is kind of like a shameless ladies' man, and is basically just looking for
that's true.
The next opportunity around every corner, basically. So, but Dawn is kind of led onto this, as we've discussed, by her education, shall we say, from a young girl in the parking lot.
Yeah.
You told me you used to go out with Steve. Is it true?
We finger fucked once last spring. That's it. It's all over now. What else?
Fair enough. She knows what she's getting into.
So, but she's not ready to have her heart broken.
No.
And quite as elegantly and eloquently, too, as Steve manages to do with the beautiful quote you talked about, as he enlightens her to what the Special People's Club actually means.
Don't you know what the Special People Clubs mean?
So, we do find out, unfortunately, your reaction was not captured there, but it was beautiful. We so we find out that Steve has already found himself a new love, and they have clearly just fucked. What do you think? Devastation? Your dream lover is banging some chick at your parents' anniversary party? How do you react?
I want to get pushed in the pool, and
so we then are led to the pivotal. I mean, how many pivotal scenes do we have? We have a lot of pivotal scenes here, certainly. But the gut wrenching yet stomach chortling laugh riot. That is the portion in which the Wiener family recounts the anniversary party and. The most entertaining part of the video is when Dawn is pushed into the pool by Missy. And they can't get enough of it.
After the party, they're sitting there watching the reruns, and they're like, oh my God. And it's literally Missy just pushing. It's just straight up. It's not even like a context. It's just push this bitch into the pool. Like, I don't know.
Dawn decides she's not gonna have it, which leads us to her most Travis Bickle moment here, where she I
just keep imagining Dawn, like, on the couch with, like, a bloody, like, shot in her stomach, just like, and, like, Missy and Mark dead, just like.
I don't know if I'm gonna have the necessary Photoshop accoutrement to put that together. So we'll have an artist, rendering. We'll have a mock-up. We'll just have a mock-up. Yeah. I'm like, you see the No Country for Old Men DVD cover? We'll do something like that. So that's a really interesting, point in the movie in which Dawn decides that she's gonna go. She clearly has access to the family toolbox. Because she has already cut the head off of one of the Missy's Barbie dolls with a saw.
Yeah,
and then she proceeds to procure a hammer and go and smash the videotape of the anniversary out.
You're so lucky.
It's an intense scene, and she then comes back and contemplates smashing Missy's head with the hammer, which is very much Solondz kind of, playing with expectations
Yeah,
there,
no,
because
and
fuck,
I-
you mentioned watching Happiness before
Yeah,
Welcome to the Dollhouse,
I
so
was
you
just
thought
gonna
she
say-
was gonna smash her fucking head, man.
Yeah, so I saw Happiness. My first Todd Solondz movie was Happiness, and so I saw that, and I was immediately like, "Oh, this is a dark motherfucker." So when I watched this, like,
as anyone would have when seeing
yeah.
Solondz, he looks like he's a fucking
when I watched this and she
a
held the hammer,
badass
I
son of
was
a
like,
bitch.
no, you know, thinking like this
no
12-year-old
retribution.
girl is about to
Yeah.
just bash her fucking kid. But the fact that she doesn't do it, I think, is actually a much more powerful choice. It's a much more interesting choice.
You know, she lets her know.
I think it carries a lot more weight.
She says,
Yeah.
you're so lucky.
Yeah.
You know, so she lets Missy know that she held her life in her hands there, and
Yeah.
she could have smashed her head with the hammer, but she chose not to. Again,
Exactly.
Solondz is like, these are these issues where, again, like, don't get me wrong, this would have been a really entertaining movie if this would have been like Todd Solondz acting as like this Woody Allen type character that he still was doing.
So, of course, there are the literal facts of my personal experience, but if it were just that, it would be a different, if I were to do an autobiographical film, it would be a very different film, a very different kind of nightmare.
Kind of having these same similar kind of emotions and stuff, but like, my God, putting these words and these thoughts into a young girl and like having her stand there like with a hammer thinking about killing potentially maybe her like little sister because she's just fucking sick of the shit. Yeah. Man, it's devastating. And like you said, your reaction to it was how horrifying that was, because this is someone who is so confused kind of, and like she's a good kid probably ultimately, she's just fucked with, and she contemplates like a fucking felony that would send her to prison for the rest of her life potentially, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like a brief, almost, that somebody could take as a comical scene in this movie. And again, Todd Solondz says, you know, like,
yeah, you know, it's why I've always had, in some sense, always a very divided response. Oftentimes, half the audience laughs and tell me how funny it is, and then the other half is angry at the first half, like, how can you laugh? This is so sad. This is so sorrowful and painful. For me, it has always been both concurrently in play with each other. The comedy is built into the pathos. These are sad comedies. It's right there on the page. Things that elicit different, sometimes opposing kinds of emotional responses, but they are always deeply emotional for me. I wouldn't go to the trouble, the pain of making a film did I not have a strong emotional experience in writing this. It's too hard to make a movie if you don't have that kind of connection to your material.
I'm not telling you whether you should laugh or cry or what the hell should happen, but hey, this kind of thing happens.
Yeah, man, no, totally. I got like people throwing fireworks or something.
The men are coming after Max, so you know they might get him, but hopefully they hopefully they don't. No, I don't know.
No, there's like fireworks going off.
Sounds like technical audio difficulties. So we kind of have this like crushing moment for Dawn where this anniversary party has just been nothing but a fucking travesty, in that
right. Steve
Rogers is gone. Yeah, the Special People's Club is bullshit.
She's lost the Special People. She's lost the Special People's Club. She's lost Brandon. Steve has rejected her. So like, what the?
All she's got left is Ralph. All she's got left is Ralphie.
No.
Don't feel bad, Dawn. Brad McCarthy's just a retard.
And you know, she's pretty fucking sick of his pussy ass too. Yeah. So which leads us to kind of like the ultimate fork in the Welcome to the Dollhouse Road, which is this choose your own adventure moment in which Dawn finally kind of like is in this place where she's just hanging out on the fucking couch. She's just chilling. She wants her to drink her soda in the family room, and you know what? Missy at one point lets her know that she's not supposed to have soda in the living room or whatever the hell it is.
Evil.
So, you know, it seems that Dawn is kind of really just like, she's done with Missy. She's got nothing left to lose, and she's presented with an opportunity where her mom kind of lets her
run wild, dude.
Well, she lets her have the opportunity to take Missy's life in her hands. Little does she know that the effects would be so dire of having Dawn let Missy know that she's not going to be able to pick her up, and that the neighbors are going to pick her up.
Oh, hey, Missy! What?
To lose over 185 pounds. This was the fat guy.
Nothing.
Ultimately, that leads to Missy's kidnapping and disappearance, which is probably not what Dawn anticipated happening by choosing not to let her know that her mom wasn't going to pick her up from school.
Yeah, no, Dawn made the great decision of like, nah, I'm good.
Fuck it, man. She's done.
Fuck it, dude.
Absolutely. So ultimately, Dawn's decision to not inform her sister of what's going on leads to her kidnapping and a police search for Missy.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's involved. The news they're interviewing the Wieners, and it's a big deal. And Mark wants to let Dawn know that nobody really gives a shit about her problems.
So you're not going to school today?
No, Mom's afraid I'll be kidnapped also.
Yeah, right.
It's the classic scene.
They're missing Missy.
Well, we've talked about this too. It's the classic scene. You watched it when you were a kid. It is one of the most effective scenes. Is that like Dawn basically thinks that like
she feels responsible for
of
Missy.
course she does. And so
Dawn is
like,
a beautiful, nice person still. She's done with the bullshit, and she might hit you with a hammer and kill you.
I don't know about nice, but yeah. Yeah. But she wants to make amends and thinks, okay, and pulls up and then realizes like, fuck it, I can't do anything. And instead of just leaving that, I don't know, she kind of missed the mark just a little bit. Like,
she decides to take it into her own hands and jump on the bus and go to New York and start putting up missing posters for Missy, as any 12-year-old girl would do. So, maybe not the safest thing to do. And that's like you mentioned earlier, that was the scene that I saw when I was younger. And I was like, wow, this is frightening of just like a child in peril, alone in New York,
because
on the
contrast,
street,
it's the contrast is that of we got to lead into it. She's in the phone booth and then she gets it's the dream sequence. And again, Todd Solondz, man,
yes, the dream sequence. Todd Solondz is the master of the dream sequence. Like, Todd Solondz' dream sequences have me tears. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Help! 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 Missy! Help! Wait! Dad!
I mean, it is. It's like one of the most fucking crucial parts of the whole movie, and it's also like the kind of crushing. The most crushing parts is like you have this girl who's
she falls asleep on the street.
Yeah, she's falling asleep. She's plastering posters, thinking like she has a lost dog or whatever, and then she falls asleep. And again, maybe we'll throw in a part of the clip, but she basically dreams of all these people telling her that they love her, and that's all it is. And it's great because I like it from a shot perspective of it's very dreamlike in the sense of like the last time she saw them. So like when Steve's, it's like him in the garage door being like, "I love you, Dawn." So it's like
very well done sequence though. It is very nice.
I mean, it's like Ralphie is like at the video game and he's like, "I love you, Dawn." So it's like the last time she saw them, that's where they're saying that, and that is really effective. But just in general, the whole scene is just I mean,
and ultimately it's devastating because as we learn that she's gone out to New York, really it doesn't we see that's a dream sequence and nobody has actually reached out to Dawn, and she is in fact still alone in New York, sleeping literally in the reality of the film. She is sleeping on the streets in New York, and she on her own actually makes her way home. So she comes back home and finds like nobody is looking for her. No one's questioning
Well,
her.
I mean, she does call. She calls ahead, and that's when Mark is like,
Sure.
"You're in big trouble."
Sure.
And
Good.
she's
I'm
like,
sorry. Good point.
"Why?"
Yeah. No. Not only are they looking
And
for
then
her,
he's
they're
like, "Well,
upset with her.
actually, they don't care."
Mom, it's Dawn.
30 minutes. Will you move? Where the fuck is Sam? Come on, hurry it up.
Can you call back a little later? She's being interviewed.
Where the hell have you been?
And, you know, like he's like, "Well,
Literally.
they're actually," and it's like cut to like them just like holding, you know.
So then,
yeah.
Missy. So then we find out that nobody really gave a shit about Dawn being missing in New York. Whatever, it was a problem. But hey, what the hell? Missy came back. They found Missy, and guess what? She was just being held captive in the cellar of one of the fallout shelter of one of the
guy,
neighbors.
dude, the fat guy that was like holding her on the shoulders
at the anniversary party.
Yeah, that's the same guy.
And he was just feeding her McDonald's, so she was
her
happy and
McDonald's
she could
and
watch
let her-
TV.
no.
She had
Yeah,
the clicker, you know.
She had the clicker. She
had the clicker, man.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
That's all you need.
I
So-
think it was like the Mark says it best. Mark says it best.
So Solondz nails like also the kidnapping element in a film. Like, that's like one of the best
you
kidnapping
think
element
it's
turnouts
this
ever in a
serious
film.
thing, and then it's just like
he didn't actually do anything to her. He just kept her there and fed her McDonald's
and like videotaped her doing like pirouettes.
the routines. Yes, he
Yeah,
wanted
it's
to,
like,
he wanted to videotape the ballet routine. So very indicative of what we would see from Solondz as far as like people's obsessions and kind of like bizarre just behavior from like regular
Expectations
people
versus reality.
Yes, yeah. So again, we come to this conclusion that Missy is the star. Nobody really gives a shit about Dawn, even if she goes to New York looking for the golden child.
No one gives a fuck.
Her dad was comatose, by the way, when Missy went missing. So
there's that great scene.
where
Dawn is like, "Don't worry, Dad."
Remember, you've still got me and Mark.
Absolutely. So he's fucking gone, but it just kind of further shows that
he's fine after they find.
Well, sure, when Missy comes back, but it's you know, it's just that continuation of that.
So our big takeaways. I mean, again, we've been sitting here talking about Welcome to Dallas over and over, and we've been talking. I mean, you and I have been talking.
Hey,
about
that's
it for
the
a
whole
while.
point of the show. That's why you're here. If any of
That
you
is the
held
point.
on,
but guess what? Now, because we've talked about this, I'm like, man, I'm so excited to talk about Happiness right now. I'm like, damn, dude, I can't wait to watch Happiness again and talk about it. But that was the same way I felt when I was watching Todd Solondz shorts. I was like, man, I cannot wait to talk about Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Hey, man, we're always going to be excited about the next next episode.
Absolutely.
You know,
big takeaways.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's
my big takeaway is this, and I've talked to you about this before, and I don't want to lecture you or have some bong hit theory.
Oh, please lecture me. That's why I paid for the masterclass.
Yeah, exactly. But no, for me, this whole movie, the big thing that highlighted for me constantly was like, and it sounds again kind of like bong hit theory, but like, it's the cyclical nature of like hatred and bullying and all that shit. And it's like a perfect example is like Dawn watches Brandon go up to the girl Cookie.
I didn't eat my dessert at lunch today. I saved it for you.
He gives the girl
a popular girl of Brandon's affection.
The popular
class.
girl, he gives her a crushed cookie, and he's like, please, you know, he wants to get invited to her party that everyone else got invited to. Dawn, meanwhile, is used to like never getting invited to this, but she watches him go through this rejection and go through this, like, the girl goes like, you gave me a cookie and it didn't cost anything. Like, what? You know, and they all laugh and run away. And then he transfers that fucking bullying and that hatred, that like piece of shit feeling, because he sees Dawn looking at him, and he's like, "Oh, that shit goes right to her." And
right to the Wiener dog.
Yeah, and then later, you know, Dawn is at dinner and she's looking at her little sister, and she's like,
I'm gonna have it made. Maybe not the big 3, but an Ivy at least.
Well, we'll have to see about those SATs.
You know, it is one of those things where, and then we also talk about the relationship between her dad and Dawn. And it's like, I like to think that like in a fictional world that like her dad is getting bullied, right? Like either by his mom or like at work.
At work or something.
Exactly. And then he comes home and he's like, and that just, it's just like, it's the cyclical nature, and just that you layer it on. And we said this before, and I don't want to, get to the cult of Cassavetes, but the only
please do.
No, but the only thing I can think of is like when I say, oh, yeah, well, it's a cyclical nature of hate. What is the only thing to break this up? And the movie talks about it, but also just Cassavetes himself.
Love,
It's love,
baby.
man. Yeah, it's love, dude.
Hey, daddy-o, it's love.
It's just like,
give me a bye. Exactly. And you're absolutely right, man. And that's why Solondz is fucking indispensable, man. And that's why he is somebody that we're talking about, because he so beautifully and so entertainingly demonstrates these
same principles.
Absolutely, these horrors and these really beautiful moments that people can have in a short period of time, and just how somebody who's sensitive and who's paying attention to how people perceive them and how they react to other people, how extreme something like middle school can be for someone like that, and how people a lot of the time don't even recognize that these people are feeling things like this. And he does it, he demonstrates it so elegantly, and he was really trying to say these things, as we talk about in his shorts in his first film, and he had a lot of these same emotions he was trying to get out. And as our main kind of point is that
and I think in some way it's one of the first things by switching genders there. And I actually went to a very preppy sort of school. I didn't go to a public school. Is that by transforming that experience into something else, it freed me up to invent scenarios that could dramatize something of the nature of the character's life.
I mean, he just fucking hit the nail on the head. He hit the jackpot when he figured out that, hey, man, I can do this through a child. I can have a kid be the protagonist. I can still say kind of the same things that I want to say.
He can still have his same director voice, his writer voice, but he doesn't have to.
He doesn't
have to act. Yeah.
Feel that this is about him.
It's autobiographical,
It's not autobiographical,
but not really.
But ultimately, Solondz is just a fucking genius, man. And not only does he assemble an incredibly, insightful movie about youth, and again, and I'm not exaggerating, and I'm not just saying this because we're covering Solondz first, of course, and we're doing a video on it, but this is hands down, and there's a couple other maybe that I could throw in here, but the most effective and just, and when I say devastating, I don't mean like, oh, it's so sad or it's so horrible, but I mean just like that it's just hits you effectively. Yeah, you understand the emotions, and whether that be you don't know whether to laugh or cry. I mean, that's life.
I think the irony here is that for all of the horribleness that transpires here, there is also great tenderness. That what moves me is the way in which this marriage of the, let's say, the ugly and the beautiful.
I mean, that's what.
Which is constant. Yeah, exactly.
You don't know. I don't know whether to laugh or
Todd
cry.
Solondz is truly one of those directors where it's like every single time you watch his movies, sometimes you will just it's like acceptable.
It'll elicit a different reaction. You'll get a totally different reaction.
And it's like, I don't know. That's maybe the point of like us talking. You know what I mean? And just like, oh shit, isn't that great? Like, there's people who,
it's yeah, dude. I mean, that's the joy of Solondz movies is like, I've seen these movies like many times. Each time we come back and we talk about them, and it's
I'm
like,
sitting here,
oh my god,
I'm having a new reaction for a film I've now seen like 7 or 8 times. Yeah, it's unbelievable. The one, there you go. I need to get that Blu-ray still.
Shamelessly, we're gonna let you know from time to time in the last video, our first episode, where we looked at the short films and fear, anxiety, and depression.
Yeah.
Those are not available, and I didn't have a VHS to hold up for those. But welcome to the Dollhouse. You can get it on Blu-ray, so it looks.
I don't even have it on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
I need to.
It's fantastic. So do yourself a favor. We'll put a link down there. Pick up the movie on Blu-ray. It could be yours. You can own a little piece of Todd Solondz.
It's worth it. Yeah.
You can own the cruelest film on adolescence. As some may say, but I would disagree, and I would say it's the most realistic film about adolescence.
Boom.
Perhaps that's our.
That's the Roger Ebert little plug. All I will say is the last little final thought for me on the film is that, and we can talk about the end scene too. Is like Dawn is on the bus, And
oh yes, beautiful. Yes, you mentioned
she's
this last
with the
time.
hummingbirds, and she's driving to she's driving to Disney
Going to
World,
Disney, yeah.
and they're all and it's an isolated vocal on just Dawn. It's
yes, what an effective way to end.
And I think again, for me, it's similar to back that cyclical nature of like the only thing that's going to kind of put a break in this cycle is love or something, but you also have to recognize that you're like alone in this world.
Yes,
and like
we don't let Solondz doesn't let you off at the end with the love. He reminds you.
Yeah, it's not depressing, but it's just like you gotta understand that like it's just you. It's just you, and like anybody else
with yourself.
Yeah, you've got to figure that. Especially at 12 years old, man. That's like a thing that I never learned. I mean, I can't say
both of us are we're certainly lost. We're lost young men.
I think most people in general are still trying to figure out like what it means to just like be with themselves and be at peace. So for a 12-year-old to start feeling these same things, but basically when
you just see the end of this is Solondz' comment is, she was supposed to be fucking 11. These assholes have said 12 years old.
He's just like,
it's very important.
So
as
wrong.
We are the premier fanfic Welcome to the Dollhouse writers.
So wrong.
Hey, as long as you're 35, that's all he cares about. That could be taken in the wrong way. Hey, that's an okay principle.
The cyclical nature, though, of his films, and then basically by the end is that you have Dawn Wiener.
Sure, that's the cyclical nature of his films too. I mean,
excuse me, yeah.
I mean, if that was a slip,
that was a Freudian slip.
That was a totally accurate and interesting slip because the cyclical nature of his films is very fascinating, as we touched on earlier with the shared universe, which we'll explore more for happiness. For sure. Let's not forget to mention though, and I almost completely forgot to say this, man. Welcome to the Dollhouse has a direct sequel. I mean, this movie has a direct continuation. I mean, we have Palindromes, which is happening later in the Todd Solondz universe, if you will. The TCU, or I'm sorry, the TSU. We haven't quite solidified our Solondz universe.
I will be I'm going to be starting the TSU. Like
we're waiting for the 4K phase 1 box set. But so it's basically like
TSU.
we have palindromes in which we have characters referenced, but then we have a direct sequel to Welcome to the Dollhouse in Wiener Dog, in which we see.
Well, I mean, you have a sequel to Happiness too.
Sure. Well, absolutely. As we said, many of these Solondz films end up being like a sequel to one another.
It's all one lived universe, and it's not in some hokey like I want to keep creating people who are running into each other serendipitously. It's just.
I mean, I honestly just found out that
happen to live in the same world.
That Dark Horse was in fact a sequel to storytelling in some respects that I had no clue that was even the case, and it's fascinating.
Interesting.
So the point being, Solondz keeps opening up this world that he keeps coming back to these characters. You know? And it is fascinating, and it is cyclical in the sense that we come back to Dawn Wiener almost at the very end of his Solondz career, but
possibly
got to this day.
I don't
say that.
No. I don't want to say
Love Child will happen.
But I'm grateful that I've been able to continue in this quasi career, making movies that continue to be unprofitable and lose money more and more. And I'm grateful for every investor who's made that leap in me, and hope they continue to do that.
And Love Child.
I know, but it's getting harder and harder for him to make a film. It's sad that like, and maybe it's a bit.
I wish we had 100 Todd Solondz films.
Well, it's a bittersweet and ironic that the fact that like we're sitting here being like, I really hope they make like another addition to like, rather. The sequel to this movie is not the end of his career, but it very well could be the last film. Which, anyways, I don't want it to be.
What a dark note to end on. We'll talk about happy things here for a moment.
Happiness.
Very nice. Yes.
No, but all I was gonna say is that my final thoughts on Dawn riding like on the bus is basically just like it's similar to what we kind of just talked about. Is that like Dawn realizes that like, despite all her other things that she's growing and learning about, it's like she's alone, even on this bus of like allies or people that like her or whatever. It's like she's completely isolated, completely alone. And that's not a bad thing. It's just that like she's having that realization, and it's completely
it is the stark reality of life.
The hummingbirds of Benjamin Franklin Junior High.
And she's just realizing that's like, it's just you and me, brain. Like, it's just you and me to the end of time. And that's it.
You know, and Solondz may choose to let her kill herself, or he may choose to let her live and explore the world. And
we only say kill herself because it's Todd Solondz.
And you know what? Maybe we just get both of those options in the Todd Solondz world. So continue to join us for Under the Influence, you know.
What's next?
Which is I was going to say a television show, but fuck, that's certainly not true. It's a YouTube show,
and we're gonna eventually isolate it, so it's a podcast too. So people can listen to the clips that we post.
Oh my goodness!
They can listen to the clips we post,
partner. Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is a show, and each episode.
Well, what's next? Can we tease next?
Yeah, we can tease next. We're going to be doing happiness next. So the next episode is going to be happiness.
Did you get your palindromes poster?
There's a palindromes poster that's ready to go up. Don't worry, I have no poster frames. I have stacks and stacks and stacks of posters with no fucking poster frames, with incredible amounts of posters already up. So, and those damn 27 by 41. Oh, those are rough. Those are hard to fit. But we have more Todd Solondz. Oh, brutal. I remember that Ed Wood, you cut that, and I always thought that was brutal. But let's not worry about that. But
let's not draw and pass.
Yeah, let's not draw ire from poster slicing, my boy. But we'll be back with happiness for episode 3, and we will continue these episodes for each Todd Solondz film.
Yeah.
As we go on,
and we're not going to tell you who's, because guess what?
No, we've got a spicy lineup.
Well, we have
that's the funny thing is ready to go.
We're kind of sitting here gestating with Todd Solondz, and it's like sooner rather than later we're going to be done. We're going to be done.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying we're going to be done with him in a matter of weeks, and then we'll be on to a new director that we're talking about, and it's like, oh boy, I'm getting excited just about.
Hey man, we're a couple of cool daddy-os who are gonna let you know what the straight shit is on these fucking filmmakers out there. So, you know, hang out with us. Thanks for sticking around for this episode. Yeah. Boy, I'm saying no cuts on this fucker. I think this thing is going up.
There's going to have to be a couple of minutes of cuts.
Oh, no. This is a whole piece of pie that's going up, my man. The people are going to see what really happens here.
Oh, yeah. They're going to see how the sausage is made.
Thank you. Yeah, Stanley Kubrick, just pressing his face up against that window. So, thank you for joining us for the second episode of Under the Influence for Todd Solondz' Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Yeah, this is the Quadratics.
The Quadratics will hopefully let you hear some beautiful music to lead you out. And let's just, you know.
Okay.
Well, there were 3 little twinkles in their eyes when over the threshold Marge was carried. Harvey, Marge, you're the greatest. You're the greatest couple the world has ever seen. We love you both. We wish you the best. Happy anniversary, great joy and happiness. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary to you. You're the king of the breadwinner's heart. And Marge, you're the queen of mothers. Missy, Mark, and Dawn are your lucky son and daughters.
Rita, did you see Dawn?
Happy anniversary to you.